Playing half court. Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews down in Washington. Let me start tonight with this red-hot issue of illegal immigration. The Supreme Court today took a whack at the Arizona law, declaring part of it unconstitutional. It left standing that requirement that the police check on the immigration status of someone they stop for a possible violation who the police officer suspects is in the country illegally. Will this drive people to the polls this November? Will it ignite fury that the Republican-packed High Court is in league with the pro-self-deporting Mitt Romney? Joining me now is the mayor of Los Angeles, Antonio Villaraigosa, chairman of the upcoming Democratic National Convention, and John Howman of New York Magazine, a top MSNBC political analyst. Gentlemen, I want you to look at this bit now. It's a quote from Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader. He had strong words about the provision the court left standing today. Let's listen to the leader.
I just say to you, Mr. President, and anyone at the sound of my voice, someone with my skin color or yours, I don't think you're going to be carrying your immigration papers with you every place you go. But if you're in Arizona and you speak with a little bit of an accent or your skin color is brown, you better have your papers with you. That's unfortunate.
Mayor, thank you so much for joining us in your twin capacities as mayor of the great Los Angeles city and also chairman of the Democratic National Convention coming up in Charlotte. It's an honor to have you on the show. How did you react, or what do you think? Maybe a bigger question. How will the Democratic Party nationally react to the court ruling today on the Arizona law?
Well, this was a partial victory for the idea that President Obama and the Justice Department articulated, and that is that there's federal preemption here with respect to immigration laws. They struck down, as you know, 3 of those provisions. They left standing the one that says they can stop when they're stopping for a legal stop. They can ask for your papers. That is very problematic. I don't see any way to implement that decision without profiling and without violating the Constitution. But what they left open is court challenges and further litigation on that matter. I think we'd like to get this out of the campaign. I think we'd like to get this in the Congress where it should be. They ought to fix this broken immigration system. Governor Romney ought to join President Obama in calling on both houses, both parties, to work together to pass a DREAM Act and pass comprehensive immigration reform.
Well, it's not happening. Let me go to John Howman. One reason it's not happening is that both parties have problems with a really tough solution. It's going to be difficult for both sides to reach a final agreement on the immigration situation, a fair, enforceable immigration law. It's very hard to get to that. Employers, of course, want cheap labor, the cheapest possible, and sometimes great labor, people that just got here and are undercover, operating off the books. And the question is, do the Democrats really want to go with enforcement if they don't have the Republicans joining hands with them? It's very hard for one party to pass a law of any kind with sanctions on it that the other party doesn't go along with, because then you're blamed entirely by the community that's affected. John Howman, is this going to be a burning issue, the fact that the Supreme Court left standing this egregious thing that allows a policeman or forces a policeman to stop a driver? He's got a bad tailpipe. He's got a bad backlight on his car. He stops him or her for basically not a big crime, let's put it that way, and then has to ask them for their immigration papers because they are a background and they have an accent or a look that suggests they might be from somewhere else recently or whatever, or any reason for doing it. It gets into profiling. Is this going to be the hot issue going into the conventions and the election?
Chris, I don't think this is specifically going to be a hot issue, although I think it is part of a broader set of issues that the Obama operation, the campaign in the White House, will try to exploit in terms of pointing out the stark differences between where the White House is and where the Republican nominee Mitt Romney is on issues related to Hispanic voters, especially in a lot of these important swing states. Arizona is not quite a swing state, although it will be relatively soon, maybe next election, maybe the election after that. And you've got a situation where,
who's going to vote? Who is more likely? I mean, you're a political analyst, and I am too, not as of your greatness perhaps, but who comes out of this result and says, damn it, I'm going to vote for sure this time? Because who's most likely to do that because of that ruling today? People angry about the fact that they left standing the requirement that cops stop people because they look a certain way, or the fact that they went the other way on the other provisions and they got rid of them and said, no, you're supplanting federal law here. Who's this going to ignite?
Look,
anybody?
Well, Chris, I just think, look, as I said, it is part of a broader set of issues, right? I don't know that there are that many Hispanic voters who are going to be driven to the polls by this issue specifically. I think there are some Hispanic voters who are going to be driven to the polls by a constellation of issues where the Obama administration, as I said, is going to draw a contrast between its position and the position on the Republican side. That is one of the most important things that President Obama has going for him. It's one of the things that is the keystones to how they hope to win re-election. And he's going to hit that issue hard. As you saw today, Mitt Romney he released a statement in which he did not actually say what he thought of the Supreme Court ruling, and he did not get on camera today. He took no questions today. His spokespeople would refuse to answer the question of what he thought about the ruling. That tells you about where the political vulnerability is seen by the Republican nominee. He thinks that this issue is an issue that's radioactive for him. Anytime he's talking about immigration, it's bad for him because he's in a bad place with the Hispanic community. Yes.
Here's the mouthwash that came out of the Mayor, react to this, Mayor. Here's Mitt Romney, what he said today, which is nothing. It was non-committal. His statement is almost nothing. Quote, President Obama has failed to provide any leadership on immigration. I believe that each state has the duty and the right to secure our borders and preserve the rule of law, particularly when the federal government has failed to meet its responsibilities. And talking to reporters on his way to Arizona today, Romney's spokesperson was no more helpful. Let's watch him. And then Mayor react to what I don't think is a real strong statement from Romney.
Does he have a reaction as to whether he agrees with this decision?
Yeah. So the states have the right to craft their immigration policy when the federal government has failed to do so. Let's say it again and again and again for you. The governor understands that states have their own right to craft policies to secure their own borders and to address illegal immigration.
Mayor, it looks to me like the Democrats have an easy walk here because it looks to me like your party is in strong position with the Latino voter for the simple reason the other side has basically forfeited the credibility, the allegiance of, and it's hard to say a completely dramatic statement, but when you're coming out for self-deportation and you don't have a word to say against Arizona, go ahead, your words, your thoughts.
That's exactly right, Chris. You hit it right on the head. Virtually everybody covering Governor Romney today has said that he's what they've said all week, and that he's been evasive, that he's refused to answer. What we do know is this. He's refused to answer whether or not he would overturn the president's decision to defer action on the Dreamers. What we do know is he said repeatedly that he would veto the DREAM Act. What we do know is that he continues to point at the president, but has never put forth his own comprehensive immigration plan. And what we do know is he could get it out of the campaign right now. Let's call on the Congress to do their job. So it's very clear. He walks around with Chris Kobach, who was the author of the Alabama law. And even in his statement today, Chris, he's saying that every state should have their own law, should have the right to pass their own laws in contradistinction to the Supreme Court, which reaffirmed that we have preemption on this issue, the federal government. So he continues to maintain clearly that the Alabama and Arizona laws are a model for the nation, that he'd veto the DREAM Act. That's the wrong way to go. We're talking about real people that have lived here their whole lives. We're talking about dividing families. We can create another path, a bipartisan path.
Well, let's take a look at this. During the primaries, Romney had positive things to say about the Arizona law. Let's listen to him here.
I think you see a model here in Arizona. They passed a law here that says that people who come here and try and find work, that the employer is required to look them up on E-Verify. Going back to the question that was asked, the right course for America is to drop these lawsuits against Arizona and other states that are trying to do the job Barack Obama isn't doing.
Well, he didn't want to have a court decision, obviously, and here he is saying he supports the law because the federal government has failed to lead on the issue. Take a listen here.
I support the Arizona law, recognizing that what Arizona has done underscores the failure of the federal government to do its job. It has been the responsibility of the federal government to protect our borders, and the federal government has failed.
You know, John Howman, I know you have to be completely objective on this, but let me ask you a chance. I'll give you one more chance to slice this. Back in '64, Barry Goldwater came out against the Civil Rights Bill. I don't question his motives, but by taking that position, he basically told the African-American community, forget about it. I'm not with you on the most important thing in the world to you right now, which is civil rights, public accommodations, access to restaurants and hotels and gas station restrooms and all that came with it, all those freedoms that come with being an American. It seems like this time it's pretty much the same thing. This time Romney's saying to the Hispanic community, I'm not with you. Self-deport yourself, people here illegally, and I'm just not with you in your sentiments. I'm going to go with the Anglos. I'm going to go with the other side and put my money on the working-class white guy who's ticked at you. I'm going the other way. You just lost with me. I've never seen a candidate take sides so clearly.
Chris, I'll try to be objective, but my analytical.
Don't you hear him doing that?
My analytical point is the same. He has a huge problem because of the position he's taken with the Hispanic community. He's right now polling in the mid-20s. You can't win a national election polling given the size of the Hispanic vote now, and especially in a certain key states, you can't win but with that kind of number. One of the most serious political imperatives Mitt Romney has is to try to fix his problem with the Hispanic community, where what he has done is, if anything, dug himself in deeper rather than fixing that problem. And I think nothing about that happened today helped him with the Hispanic community. I think nothing that's happened over the course of the past 10 days have helped him with the Hispanic community. And the way he's handled it, as I said, has made his problem worse rather than better. I don't see whether you cast it in the moral, historical terms that you do or in the narrower political terms that I do, it's still a huge problem because the Hispanic community, as you suggested, does not think Mitt Romney is, by and large, with it.
Okay, let me thank you. Well said. And let me go to the mayor.
I think this goes beyond.
Okay.
I think it goes beyond the Hispanic community. I think people who care about a just, humane immigration policy that enforces our borders but gives us a pathway to citizenship is much broader than just Latinos and much broader than just Democrats.
I think you're right. Among independents,
of Americans who believe in that.
And let me ask you why I've got you, my friend, Mr. Mayor. It's an honor to have you on, my friend. But let me tell you this. I've got to nail you. When the Democrats write their platform this summer, when you write your platform on same-sex, will you endorse a state-by-state approach to this or a federal law that basically guarantees the right of people to marry someone of the same sex? Would it be federal or state-by-state the party will support?
I think I've made it fairly clear. I think that marriage equality is a fundamental liberty that the federal government and our Constitution ought to protect. I've made that very clear. You're not nailing me to anything, my friend. I believe in that. I think it's about family values. I think we ought to keep families together on the immigration side, but also when someone wants to marry, they want to have a loving relationship. The federal government should not be interfering with that right.
Oh, no. Should the federal government support the right to a same-sex marriage in the law?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. John Howman and Mayor Villaraigosa, Antonio Villaraigosa, chairman of the Democratic National Convention this summer.